Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here again with Kiela Smith. I tell you what, we met in Pittsburgh and she had great things happening with this. What was the name of the company? First of all, welcome to Politics Done Right.
Thank you.
You had this thing that you were doing with this group. What was it called again?
Artists design the future.
And what was that all about?
So it was a project that
Wait, let me back up. Is it a project or was it a project?
is
It is a project.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Yeah.
that we were working on. I had brainstormed the idea being inspired by some things I've seen, by what I've seen my father do, by what I've seen an artist in particular here do in leading a similar sort of development over 20 years ago.
Right.
And we were working on it. I approached her and I said, would you help me build this? And she said, absolutely, emphatically, without hesitation. And we worked, as I said, in the shadows for 3-4 years with no funding.
Right.
So then I applied to Vocal,
And that is
the fellowship.
Right.
So Vocal is a national fellowship to seed social justice-based enterprise and project ideas
Right.
that really wouldn't normally get the focus or support, which was where we were. So
Right.
Artists Design the Future, our initial intention was to form as a worker cooperative. You remember we
I
talked
remember
about
that because you were talking about raising the money per square foot,
Yes,
etc.
exactly. So we're focused on artist-led community engagement and development of mixed-use spaces, i.e. buildings,
Right.
for artists and creative entrepreneurs to own where they work and live or their workspace.
Right.
Collectively in a cooperative model.
Right.
As a cooperative.
So you have all kind of artists living in the same place, and I think I'd ask you about, well, can a writer be there? Can you
Yes,
use it? And
that's
it
a
said
creative,
absolutely, yes.
absolutely.
Right.
And a tradesperson who
Right.
builds things, welds,
They
and
fit the bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So since then, since we spoke
And
last
actually,
year,
that is what this is supposed to be now, the update. You just
Yes.
gave us a little preamble of what it's all. Now, what's the update?
So the update is myself
Uh-huh.
and the two other co-founders that are
That I
brought to the
met,
table, Laura Weatherid and Sahai,
Right.
Geraldine Hebert, and myself have been working from, so last April, the Vocal National Fellowship awarded us $30,000
Oh, wow.
and business and storytelling coaching to be that seed funding,
Yeah.
to be the catalyst to get this
More money.
momentum of funding.
Yeah.
Subsequent to that, I wrote another fellowship application that was successful, brought in another 40,000. Subsequent to that, we got a small seed, another seed fund,
Right.
just around 5,000. Subsequent to that, we got National Endowment for the Arts grant to do feasibility study
Which,
for the building.
and how much is
And
that worth?
through our fiscal sponsor, which is near
Yeah.
Northwest Arts Council, and that was 25,000.
Wow.
And then the City of Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs awarded us 45,000 as part of a program called Together We Heal.
I'm
Wait, I'm not
impressed.
done. There's one more.
Oh, okay.
And that Together We Heal through the Department of Cultural Affairs at the City of Chicago
Yeah.
was also through our fiscal sponsor. And then we just were awarded from the Department of Planning at the City of Chicago.
Right.
That is with the Office of Equity and Racial Justice at the
Right.
city. That's a newly codified office.
Under the
100
new Mayor Johnson.
No, this was under the old mayor.
Oh, okay.
Right before she left.
Right before she left. Okay.
150,000 of funds in what's called the Wealth Building Initiative, focused on shared ownership models and building the ecosystem.
Am I to understand that you guys just brought in about $250,000?
Over,
Over a quarter?
almost 300, 294,000.
294. Well,
Yeah.
my math skills weren't working accurately.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's, and if you remember last year when we spoke, in terms of just getting to the building,
Right.
roundabout could be anywhere around 8 million to 12 million, but we're
Right.
talking about a 25 to 30 unit building
Right, right.
with 20-ish work live units and commercial spaces on the first floor. So, since then, we've had some retreats and really thought about the idea, and so there are other ways we're thinking about how it could exist, whether it's in a smaller buildings to start or multiple, what they call scattered site. It
Right.
could be new construction like what we talked about
Right,
last year. So
right.
there's And because there are developers out here who are developing in our communities, because this, what we're looking to develop is actually in the community that I live in, basically.
Right.
But there's developers out here where their only metric is ROI. I think we talked about that last year, but there are other things that must be considered.
Right. Just for folks who don't understand, that's return on investment.
I'm sorry, return on investment. Thank you. But they only look at the financial. They don't look at the what is the value to the community, because that's extractive.
Right.
That's just a developer coming in and taking from us.
Right.
What are we building in? How are we using this for placekeeping? How are we using this to build perhaps the technology and the environmental infrastructure and the cultural infrastructure of our own communities, and then own it?
Right.
Because there's artist developments in Chicago.
Right.
And the majority, except for the one my co-founder led and a couple other small ones, all the artists are renters and they don't own. And self-determination is really important, because then you control the trajectory of your business, because artists are entrepreneurs, business people. You control the trajectory of sustainability and stability of where you live and where you work. Then you can build wealth. Then you can grow your income. Then you can grow your family in an intergenerational environment where you have community. So that's what we're doing. So
did you go ahead? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the money we've raised to date was all catalyzed by Vocal.
Right.
And I feel like had I not applied for that to get us this funding, I wouldn't have had the clarity I have now, and that things got really honed and, time tested. And then they not only funded the fellowship, it's a 6-month fellowship, they then have an alumni program. So they've continued to stay near me, meet monthly, even send me other funding opportunities I can apply for. So they really want to see it grow legs.
Now, when you get this stuff built out and you start building, how is it exactly that folks are going to get ownership into whatever space you create?
Great question.
Yeah.
So part of the funding that we got with the wealth building from Department of Planning and the Together We Heal is we already have planned, and we're going to be launching this fall 8 to 10 training sessions about the principles of cooperatives, a little about the background of Black African American cooperatives in particular in the United States, and the artists and creative entrepreneurs that go through all those sessions then have the opportunity, so everyone has the same understanding and ownership of this idea of cooperatives. And then they can raise their hand and say, okay, I want to be an owner in this building. And then we begin the process of them starting to put some skin in the game with money on the table as their investment to have a share of ownership in the cooperative. And our goal and our vision is to obviously continue fundraising towards the 8 to 12 million and the other we need for more feasibility, so that we can also seed those artists and creative entrepreneurs with like their initial funding.
They're going to all have skin in the game from their earnings.
Exactly. And ideally what we envision is being able to, whoever goes through those trainings, to actually give them in their pot of investment an amount of money, whether it's 500 or 1,000, to really catalyze their investment that they'll need to raise to have that ownership stake. And then once we have the whole crew of however many artists are going to be in the building, right now let's just call it 30, because that's where our brain was last year, then this is how it turns traditional development on its head also. Not only we're talking about cooperatives, there's no need for sales. There's no need. Then those people also have a say in
how the building is run. They have a say
to meet their needs. So what does this space need to have? What does it need to look like? What can we financially do with all those needs? What can we meet? How can we find happy mediums? Where can we design? So that takes us to design, which is then an important part of the process.
There are two things here, because earlier you mentioned that you don't have a design yet, because it may be a building, it may be a scattered thing of homes, it may be, you haven't envisioned what the outcome is going to be yet. And you're saying that these people who have skin in the game, they will determine if you guys are going to build a building, you're going to build several buildings, etc. Am I understanding correctly?
To a certain degree, yes. Yes and no.
Okay.
So we're simultaneously, so the grant we got for wealth building with the Department of Planning, the goal in the 12 months that we have is to be at a place of what's called site control by the end of that 12 months or sooner. So we already, or control of a space.
I mean,
Either
owning
land
or renting.
So control just means you have the right to do things with the space.
Got it.
To begin the development process. You may not own it,
Right.
but you might.
Right.
It kind of, every single situation is
It's different, right.
So then when we get that, we will then take the next steps, and the design of the space. So during that time also we'll be including those artists, doing focus groups, talking with them, doing what's called a charrette. It's kind of a design experience with the
Right.
architect and community to say what we want to have in this space. However, because of the complexity of development, it may not be that those ultimate owners of the cooperative, collective owners of the cooperative, actually have a say in, it's going to be this building, or it's going to be scattered site, or it's going to be that.
What would make them not have that decision making?
Because it's such a simultaneous process between getting them trained.
So meaning the leader, you guys
us as the
leaders
leadership team
may just go ahead and make that decision because it's more expedient at that time. I mean, expedient may not be the right word.
Well, expedient probably isn't the right word, but
Right.
because there are competing priorities
Right.
of need to get site control.
Right.
However, site control does not define design.
Right. Right.
So design then becomes the next part of the process,
Right.
which absolutely includes
Right.
the owners.
Got it.
And that's almost more important. It's equal, but it's
Right.
almost more important because how the space is used indoors, outdoors, collectively with the community is also something we'll be doing simultaneously, but that almost becomes more important than, well, is it a 5-story building or is it scattered site?
Right. So then the last question is going to be this. The idea of having these cooperatives, housing for artists, etc. Do you have intentions of leveraging that further? It's like, hey, this is a model that actually works.
Yes.
If this model can work with artists, what other trades or what other kinds of stuff can we leverage this to kind of give us more of an inclusive democracy that allows folks to build wealth?
I want to add a word in what you just said.
Go
You
for
said
it.
inclusive, democratic process, and accessible. Because we're also foundationally based in wanting to assure, not wanting, committing to assure that a third or more of the building is also made accessible and designed from the beginning for people with disabilities who are creative entrepreneurs and artists. To your question, not really. There's not a vision to say, okay, now we want to expand and see how this works for some other community. There's still enough artists, creative entrepreneurs, with and without, of all abilities, who have a need for space, whether it's for their practice or whether it's for their personal life or both, in a work-live situation, that are not being met. The affordable housing need in the city of Chicago is huge. And specifically for artists, I can't tell you how many calls or emails I get of people saying, do you know where there's some space I can afford? We've been doing surveys and getting so the need is still great. So yes, but we do want it to be a model that can be replicated in the city.
And
that's why we're doing it.
Replication.
In the city, nationally, perhaps even internationally, because there aren't enough models of this type of development.
Yeah.
At least we know that the need is huge.
Well, I from the time I met you and you told me about the model, I liked it. I think it's something that should work, can work. And you tell me about cooperatives, I fall in love. I think cooperatives are where we really should be heading. Cooperative versus corporations.
Yes.
Cooperatives,
Well, and we clarified that when we talked last year, though, is that actually a cooperative is a type of corporation. It's just a different model.
The model is that it's not shareholder based.
It's based grassroots. It's human. It's democratic.
Exactly. Shareholding is democratic.
It's not about who's at the top has control and all that.
Kiela, you should remember by now. I'm going to say what was the question that I should have asked you that I didn't. You should be prepared for that.
Yeah, I am. What do we need going forward? So I'll tell you that.
That's a cheating answer because as it turns out, that's the same question. That's the same one you gave before. Go ahead.
So what we're doing now that you see this momentum of fundraising and support, we're really excited with what's coming up with events and the trainings and the community engagement and festivals and things we're planning. What we really need to get some stronger legs under this and to be able to propel quicker is funding sources that come with more than just 1 year or 6 months. So we're really projecting, looking at $3,000 to $5,000
is only for 1 year?
1 year.
Okay.
So looking towards 3 to 5 year philanthropic support to give some capacity buildings. We can bring on perhaps some more staff. We can, because really I'm only considered part-time, but I work, of course, more than part-time.
Yeah.
And so really getting some
So
longer
it's 3 of
term
you.
funding. There's three of us, yes.
Well, look, I think you guys are going
All
to do
artists,
that.
by the way.
All artists. And I think you guys are going to do it. The fact that, you know, writing proposal, not proposal, what you call them, grants. Writing proposal
All
for
of that,
grants is not an easy thing. And actually getting the grants is a harder thing. So, all right, look at her. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you
Kiela
so much.
Smith,
Thank you.
I tell you
Thank
what, that you said you had an update. That wasn't an update. That was a mega update. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
that was
Thank
a mega
you.
update.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share.